I sometimes like to use a vise with my portable bandsaw, especially when I'm cutting round pieces, just because they like to twist out of your hand when you're cutting them. This vise I've been using works, but I'd like to find one that's a little bit smaller. I found this one on Amazon, and it's a drill press vise. It was cheap at $21. I'm sure at $21 it's going to be lacking in quality, but maybe I can fix that. This was the #1 complaint in the reviews. It looks like they purposely leave these screws loose on the moving jaw because of this rough surface. So if you tighten them down, you can't move the jaw. Here's another reason you can't tighten the screws. Besides the rough surface on the rails, the bottom of the moving jaw is machined too low. It has removable jaws, but they don't look the greatest either. Since I'm never going to use this for a drill press, and these ears are going to be in my way, I'm just going to cut them off. Since I have it all apart, I might as well machine all the surfaces. On this moving jaw, I'm not sure why it has this raised area on each side. So I think I'm going to machine them off so it's a flat surface. I'm just going to take a little bit off at a time until I reach a flat surface. If I take too much off, then the lead screw for the adjustable jaw won't match up. So now I'll zero out the DRO, so when I reach 0 on the other side, they'll be exactly the same height. Next, I'll true up the bottom of the adjustable jaw. This is where that bottom plate attaches that I showed earlier that had the loose screws. Next, these rails need to be machined smooth and even with the bottom of the adjustable jaw. That was the other reason when I showed earlier in the video, when I tightened those screws, it locked up the adjustable jaw, besides the rails being rough. So now, holding the adjustable jaw in place, I've got it pretty even with the rails. Off camera, I test fit the plate and everything worked out perfect. I can tighten the screws all the way down now, and there's just enough room for the jaw to move back and forth smoothly. Now I'm going to replace the jaws that came on the vise with brass jaws. Now I need to make homemade transfer screws. So I happen to have some screws that were the same size as the existing screw holes in the jaw. So I screwed them in as far as they would go and marked them with a silver Sharpie. Then I found the 5C collet that fits the screw size. You can see where the mark ended when I had it screwed into the jaw. So I'll use that for a reference point when I cut a 45-degree angle on it. With my rotary indexer mounted at a 45-degree angle in the milling vise and a 1/2 inch end mill, I'll rotate the indexer slowly and advance the y-axis on the mill until it cuts the screw head off. I made two of them, and I'm not going to bother hardening them because this is the only project I'm going to use them on. And I'm using them on brass. So now I've got them screwed into the adjustable jaw. So now I'll hold the brass jaws in place. I'll tighten the vise until it makes index marks on the soft brass. So now I have the location for my screw holes. Next, I'll counterbore for the screw head clearance. The thread size on the vise jaws is 1032, but my screws are too long. So here's the way that I shorten screws. I drill and tap a piece of scrap aluminum angle. You can save the angle for different size screws and just mark the screw size for each hole. You can always use washers under the screw depending on how long you need it. Now I've got the brass jaw mounted on the adjustable side of the vise. I move the transfer screws over to the fixed jaw side of the vise. Now I can drill and countersink the holes. I mounted the vise on my pallet on the mill and dialed it in on the fixed jaw. I have a spacer underneath the vise so I don't cut into my pallet with the mill. While the vise is dialed in, I'm going to mill the top of the brass jaws to make them even. To keep everything square, I'll mill off the bottom of the vise where I cut it with a bandsaw. Now that one side of the base is machined 90 degrees to the fixed jaw, I took it off the pallet and laid it in the vise with a parallel underneath the side that I already milled. So now I'll mill the other side of the base. So now all the improvements are done. I'd probably never use it in combination with my milling vise, but if I had to, I feel confident that it would work. So I went from a $21 cheap vise to a pretty decent vise with no extra cost and having some fun with the milling machine.